The follicular renaissance, 10 nutritional weapons to reverse the clock. Time is a relentless thief, stealing vitality and often leaving behind a thinning reflection in the mirror. Yet, emerging research confirms that follicular decline is not inevitable. It is a biological puzzle solvable through precision nutrition. We are witnessing a paradigm shift where food becomes medicine, targeting the cellular mechanisms of aging to reignite growth cycles and fortify structural integrity. This is not merely a diet, it is a tactical protocol for preservation. Our investigation begins with nature's perfect protein capsule, the absolute foundation of follicular strength.
Eggs, protein, and biotin. In the vast, often contradictory landscape of nutritional science, few foods have weathered the storms of public opinion and emerged as victoriously as the humble egg. For decades, it was maligned by a medical establishment obsessed with cholesterol, yet modern biochemistry has vindicated the egg as perhaps nature's most perfect capsule of life-sustaining material. When we specifically investigate the physiological mechanisms of hair loss in the aging adult, a demographic battling the dual adversaries of hormonal shifts and declining nutrient absorption, the egg reveals itself not merely as a breakfast staple, but as a foundational biological weapon. To understand why the egg is critical for reversing follicular decline, we must first understand the architecture of hair itself. Hair is not a living tissue in the way skin is. It is a keratinized filament, a protein structure pushed upward from a living root buried deep within the dermis. This structure is roughly 90 to 95% protein. Therefore, the consumption of protein is not optional for hair growth. It is the prerequisite. However, not all proteins are created equal. The aging body undergoes a phenomenon known as anabolic resistance, where it becomes less efficient at processing dietary protein into muscle and tissue. This is where the egg's distinct advantage lies. It possesses a biological value of 100, the standard against which all other proteins are measured. It provides the complete spectrum of essential amino acids in a format that the elderly digestive system can easily assimilate, ensuring that the raw materials for keratin synthesis reach the follicle rather than being excreted as waste. The specific amino acid profile of the egg is particularly relevant to the aging scalp. Eggs are exceptionally rich in cysteine and methionine, sulfur-containing amino acids that are the chemical linchpins of hair strength. Sulfur is often referred to as nature's beauty mineral because it is required for the formation of disulfide bonds. These bonds are the molecular glue that hold the keratin chains together, giving hair its tensile strength, elasticity, and texture. As we age, the disulfide bridges in our hair naturally weaken, leading to the brittle, straw-like texture often associated with elderly hair. By flooding the system with high-quality sulfur-rich amino acids derived from eggs,
we provide the body with the necessary components to reinforce these bonds from the inside out. This is a process of structural fortification that topical conditioners and expensive serums attempt to mimic chemically, but can never truly replicate, as they only coat the exterior of the shaft. The egg works at the manufacturing plant, the follicle bulb, ensuring that the fiber being produced is robust before it ever breaks the surface of the scalp. However, the protein narrative is only half of the egg's contribution to hair preservation. We must turn our attention to the micronutrient profile, specifically the presence of biotin, also known as vitamin B7 or vitamin H. Biotin has achieved a mythical status in the hair loss community, often sold in isolated synthetic supplements. Yet the bioavailability of biotin in a whole egg far surpasses that of a synthetic pill. Biotin acts as a coenzyme for carboxylase enzymes, which are involved in the metabolism of fatty acids, amino acids, and glucose. In the context of hair, biotin is essential for the production of keratin. A deficiency in biotin, which becomes increasingly common in older adults due to changes in gut flora and medication interactions, leads directly to alopecia, hair loss, and dermatitis. The egg yolk is one of the richest natural sources of biotin on the planet. It is important here to address a specific biochemical interaction that has fascinated food scientists for a century, the relationship between biotin and avidin. Avidin is a glycoprotein found in the egg white that binds to biotin with incredible tenacity, preventing its absorption. In raw eggs, this binding can actually cause a biotin deficiency. However, the application of heat during cooking denatures the avidin, neutralizing its binding capacity while leaving the biotin intact. Thus, the cooked egg becomes a perfectly balanced delivery system, providing both the protein scaffold from the white and the enzymatic catalyst from the yolk to build hair. Beyond the well-known protein and biotin connection, the egg is a powerhouse of other critical nutrients that support the aging scalp environment. We must look at the role of lutein and zeaxanthin. While typically associated with eye health, these carotenoids are potent antioxidants. Oxidative stress is a primary driver of aging. Free radicals attack the cellular machinery of the hair follicle, causing it to shrink and eventually cease production, a process called miniaturization.
The antioxidants found in the vibrant yellow-orange yolk of a pasture-raised egg combat this oxidative stress, protecting the follicle's DNA integrity. Furthermore, eggs are a significant source of selenium and iodine, trace minerals that support thyroid function. Hypothyroidism is a rampant, often undiagnosed condition in the elderly population that causes diffuse hair thinning. By supporting the thyroid gland, eggs indirectly ensure that the hormonal signals regulating the hair growth cycle, anagen, catagen, telogen, remain active and rhythmic. The cultural and historical context of the egg further illuminates its importance. In almost every civilization, the egg has been a symbol of genesis and rebirth. It is fascinating to note that in periods of history where animal protein was scarce, hair health was often one of the first visible markers of malnutrition. In the modern era, particularly during the late 20th century, the low-fat craze and the demonization of dietary cholesterol led many older adults to replace eggs with processed carbohydrates or sugary cereals. This dietary shift arguably contributed to a rapid acceleration of aging phenotypes, including hair thinning among the baby boomer generation. The cholesterol found in eggs, once feared, is now understood to be vital for the production of steroid hormones, including testosterone and estrogen. While an excess of dihydrotestosterone, DHT, is linked to pattern baldness, a baseline of healthy hormonal production is required for hair vitality. The cholesterol in eggs provides the backbone for these hormones. Moreover, the cell membranes of the scalp skin require cholesterol and fats to maintain hydration and barrier function. A diet devoid of healthy cholesterol leads to a dry, flaky scalp that cannot support a healthy root system. We must also consider the sourcing of the egg, as this dramatically alters its medicinal potential for hair loss. The modern industrial egg, laid by chickens confined in darkness and fed a diet of genetically modified soy and corn, is structurally different from the egg of a pasture-raised bird. Pasture-raised eggs have been shown to contain significantly higher levels of vitamin E and omega-3 fatty acids, and lower ratios of inflammatory omega-6s. Vitamin E is a crucial nutrient for the aging scalp. It improves capillary growth and blood circulation.
A study involving volunteers with hair loss showed that supplementation with tocotrienols, a family of vitamin E, resulted in a 34% increase in hair count, largely due to the reduction of lipid peroxidation in the scalp. A pasture-raised egg is a natural bioavailable source of this vitamin. Therefore, when we prescribe eggs for hair loss in older adults, we are specifically advocating for high-quality, nutrient-dense eggs that act as a comprehensive multivitamin. Finally, the versatility of the egg makes it a practical intervention for the elderly. As people age, appetite often diminishes, and the mechanics of chewing tough meats can become difficult. The egg offers high-density nutrition in a soft, palatable form. It can be prepared in endless variations, ensuring compliance with a dietary protocol. From a culinary science perspective, the coagulation of egg proteins occurs at relatively low temperatures, meaning nutrients are preserved if not overcooked. The integration of eggs into the daily diet of an older adult essentially guarantees that the baseline requirements for hair synthesis, amino acids, B vitamins, sulfur, and antioxidants, are met. It removes the supply chain bottleneck that causes the body to deprioritize hair growth in favor of vital organ maintenance. In the triage system of the human body, hair is not essential. When nutrients are scarce, the hair goes first. The egg ensures that scarcity never occurs, signaling to the body that there is enough abundance to maintain the luxury of a full head of hair.
2. Fatty fish, salmon, mackerel. If the egg is the brick and mortar of hair construction, then the fatty acids derived from cold water fish are the irrigation system that keeps the agricultural landscape of the scalp fertile and resilient. As we transition to the second tier of our investigation, we plunge into the marine world to uncover the role of fatty fish, specifically salmon, mackerel, sardines, and herring, in halting the progression of age-related alopecia. The scientific consensus is increasingly pointing towards inflammation as a silent, pervasive killer of hair follicles in the elderly. This phenomenon, often termed inflammaging, refers to the chronic low-grade systemic inflammation that develops with advancing age. It affects every organ system, including the skin. In the scalp, microinflammation around the hair follicle triggers a cascade of immune responses that damage the stem cells responsible for regenerating hair. The follicle, under constant inflammatory assault, scars over or shrinks, producing thinner, wispier hair until it ceases production entirely. This is where fatty fish become the most potent medicinal food in the anti-aging arsenal. The primary active agents in these fish are omega-3 fatty acids, specifically eicosapentaenoic acid (EPA) and docosahexaenoic acid (DHA). Unlike the alpha-linolenic acid (ALA) found in plant sources like flax seeds, EPA and DHA are already in the active form required by the human body. The conversion rate of plant-based ALA to usable EPA-DHA is notoriously poor in humans, and it degrades further with age. Therefore, direct consumption of marine sources is non-negotiable for therapeutic effects. Omega-3s act as powerful biological fire extinguishers. They inhibit the production of cytokines, the signaling molecules that drive inflammation. By reducing the systemic inflammatory load, omega-3s create a ceasefire zone in the scalp, allowing follicles to recover from the stress of inflammaging and return to the anagen growth phase. Beyond the suppression of inflammation, fatty fish play a crucial role in the lipid composition of the scalp itself. The scalp is skin, but it is unique skin with a high density of sebaceous glands. As we age, the production of sebum, the natural oil that conditions hair, often becomes dysregulated. In some older adults, it dries up, leading to a brittle, desert-like scalp environment where hair snaps off at the root. In others, the composition of the oil changes, becoming waxy and clogging the follicle. The healthy fats found in salmon and mackerel help regulate the lipid barrier of the skin. They integrate into the cell membranes of the scalp, improving hydration retention from the inside out. A hydrated scalp is elastic and thick. A dehydrated scalp is tight and thin. When the scalp skin is healthy and pliable, it provides a robust bed for the hair root to anchor into, significantly reducing shedding caused by mechanical stress like brushing or washing. However, the deep dive into fatty fish reveals a nutrient connection that rivals even the omega-3s in importance: vitamin D. It is a startling medical reality that a vast majority of the elderly population is deficient in vitamin D. As skin ages, it loses its capacity to synthesize vitamin D from sunlight efficiently. Furthermore, older adults tend to spend more time indoors. This deficiency is catastrophic for hair health. Vitamin D is not just a vitamin, it is a prohormone that interacts with receptors on almost every cell in the body, including the keratinocytes in the hair follicle. Research indicates that vitamin D is essential for initiating the anagen phase of hair growth. Without sufficient levels, follicles can become stuck in the telogen resting phase, leading to diffuse thinning. Fatty fish are among the very few dietary sources of naturally occurring vitamin D. Wild-caught salmon, for instance, contains massive amounts of bioavailable vitamin D. By consuming these fish, older adults can bypass the inefficiencies of their aging skin and deliver this critical hormone precursor directly to the follicle receptors, effectively waking up dormant hair roots. The investigation into fatty fish also necessitates a look at the blue zones, regions of the world where people live the longest and healthiest lives, such as Okinawa, Japan, and Ikaria, Greece. In these regions, fish consumption is a daily ritual, and hair retention among the elderly is notably higher than in Western populations. This is not a coincidence, it is a correlation backed by biochemistry. The Western diet, high in omega-6 fatty acids found in vegetable oils and processed foods, promotes inflammation. The ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 in the average American diet is estimated to be around 16:1, whereas our evolutionary ancestors ate a ratio closer to 1:1. This imbalance creates a pro-inflammatory state that accelerates aging. By aggressively introducing fatty fish into the diet,
We attempt to correct this ratio, shifting the body's chemistry back toward a state of homeostasis and regeneration. We must also analyze the protein quality of fish compared to other meats. Fish protein is highly digestible and rich in lysine, an amino acid that plays a role in collagen production and iron absorption. Iron deficiency is another common cause of hair loss in the elderly, particularly in women. While red meat is a source of iron, it can be heavy on the digestive system and pro-inflammatory if processed. Fish offers a lighter, anti-inflammatory vehicle for protein and minerals. Furthermore, species like mackerel and sardines are rich in selenium, which works in tandem with vitamin E to protect cell membranes. However, a rigorous investigation must address the controversy of toxicity. The oceans are no longer the pristine reservoirs they once were. Heavy metals, particularly mercury, and industrial pollutants like PCBs accumulate in the fat tissue of fish. Mercury is a known toxin that can actually cause hair loss, the very thing we are trying to prevent, along with neurological damage. This presents a paradox. The fish is the cure, but the fish can be the poison. The solution lies in the selection of species and the understanding of the trophic pyramid. Large predatory fish like swordfish or king mackerel accumulate high levels of mercury. The sweet spot for hair health lies in the SMASH acronym: salmon, mackerel, specifically North Atlantic, not king, anchovy, sardines, and herring. These fish are lower on the food chain, have shorter lifespans, and thus accumulate fewer toxins, while providing the highest density of omega-3s. Wild-caught Alaskan salmon is the gold standard, as the waters are cleaner and the fish feed on natural krill, giving their flesh the potent antioxidant astaxanthin, which provides the pink color. Astaxanthin has been shown to reduce DHT levels, blocking the hormone responsible for androgenetic alopecia. The future of hair loss prevention may very well lie in the extraction of specific bioactive peptides from these marine sources. Scientists are currently exploring how marine collagen peptides, derived from the skin and scales of fish, can stimulate the proliferation of fibroblasts in the human dermis. Fibroblasts are the cells that produce collagen, the structural network of the skin. As we age, collagen production plummets, causing the scalp to thin and lose its grip on the hair follicle.
Supplementing with the skin of the fish, which is often discarded by Western diners but revered in Asian cuisine, provides the specific amino acids like hydroxyproline needed to rebuild this collagen matrix. Eating the skin of the salmon, therefore, is not just a culinary preference, it is a dermatological intervention. In summary, the inclusion of fatty fish in the diet of an older adult is a multi-targeted strategy. It addresses the systemic fire of inflammation via omega-3s, it corrects the hormonal signaling pathways via vitamin D, it rebuilds the lipid barriers of the scalp, and it provides high-quality protein for keratin synthesis. It is a food group that fundamentally alters the biological terrain of the body. If the aging process is a drying out and a stiffening of tissues, the fatty acids from the ocean provide the fluidity and moisture necessary to keep the biological machinery, including the hair follicles, running smoothly. It is a return to the sea, a harnessing of marine vitality to combat the terrestrial ravages of time.
3. Spinach and leafy greens. If protein provides the bricks for the cathedral of hair and fatty acids provide the mortar, then the nutrients derived from dark leafy greens represent the intricate vascular infrastructure, the supply lines, that ensure the construction site remains active. In the third phase of our investigation into reversing follicular senescence, we turn our gaze to the kingdom of chlorophyll: spinach, kale, Swiss chard, and collard greens. To understand the critical necessity of these foods for the aging adult, one must first grasp the brutal triage system of human biology. The hair follicle is, metabolically speaking, a luxury item. It is one of the most rapidly dividing cell populations in the human body, second only to the lining of the gut and bone marrow. This rapid division requires an immense continuous supply of energy, oxygen, and micronutrients. However, because hair is non-essential for immediate survival, unlike the heart, lungs, or brain, the body will ruthlessly cut off its supply lines at the first sign of deficiency. As we age, our circulatory efficiency diminishes. Peripheral blood flow to the extremities, including the scalp, often weakens due to arterial stiffening and reduced capillary density. The result is a scalp that is slowly suffocating. Leafy greens are the antidote to this suffocation, primarily through their role in oxygenating the blood and optimizing the vascular highways that feed the dermal papilla. The central protagonist in the story of spinach and hair loss is iron. Iron deficiency is the single most common nutritional deficiency in the world, and its correlation with hair loss, particularly telogen effluvium and diffuse thinning in older women, is irrefutable. However, the medical nuance here is often lost in general practice. A standard blood test measures hemoglobin, but for hair health, the critical marker is ferritin. Ferritin is a blood cell protein that contains iron. It essentially acts as the body's iron storage bank. When the body detects a drop in circulating iron, it raids the bank to keep vital organs functioning. The hair follicle, requiring massive amounts of iron to facilitate the enzymatic reactions of cell division, is extremely sensitive to ferritin levels. Dermatological research suggests that while a ferritin level of 20 nanograms per mil might be considered normal for survival, a level of at least 70 nanograms per mil is often required to trigger hair regrowth. Spinach is a powerhouse of non-heme iron.
While non-heme iron is less bioavailable than the heme iron found in red meat, it comes without the inflammatory baggage of processed meats. For the older adult whose digestive fire may be waning, spinach offers a gentle, scalable source of this vital mineral. But the investigation into spinach reveals a complex biochemical caveat: oxalates. Spinach is high in oxalic acid, an anti-nutrient that can bind to minerals like calcium and iron, preventing their absorption. This leads to a fascinating culinary paradox. Eating raw spinach in massive quantities might yield less usable iron than expected. The solution, rooted in both food science and traditional cooking methods, is heat. Lightly steaming or sautéing spinach breaks down the oxalic acid, liberating the iron and making it significantly more bioavailable. Furthermore, the chemistry of absorption dictates that non-heme iron requires an acidic environment to be transformed into a soluble state. This is why the pairing of spinach with vitamin C is not merely a culinary suggestion, but a biological requirement. The vitamin C found in the spinach itself, or augmented by a squeeze of lemon, converts ferric iron Fe+ into ferrous iron Fe2+, the form the body can absorb. This synergy highlights the importance of dietary complexity. A pill cannot replicate the matrix of cofactors found in a leaf. Beyond iron, leafy greens are the premier source of folate, vitamin B9. The word folate is derived from the Latin folium, meaning leaf. Its function in the body is fundamental. It creates DNA and other genetic material. Since hair growth is essentially a process of constant cell division, folate is the fuel for the engine. In older adults, folate deficiency is alarmingly common, often due to medication interactions or poor diet. A lack of folate leads to megaloblastic anemia, where red blood cells become large and inefficient at carrying oxygen. For the scalp, this means the hair bulb is starved of oxygen, causing the hair shaft to become weak, brittle, and eventually shed. Synthetic folic acid added to fortified grains is often poorly metabolized by a significant portion of the population who carry the MTHFR gene mutation, a genetic variant that impairs the conversion of folic acid to its active form, L-methylfolate. The natural folate found in spinach and kale is already in a bioavailable form, bypassing this genetic bottleneck and delivering immediate support to the cellular machinery of the hair follicle. We must also examine the role of vitamin A, specifically in the form of beta-carotene, which gives greens their deep dark pigment, masked by chlorophyll. The body converts beta-carotene into retinoids, which are essential for the maintenance of all epithelial tissues, including the scalp. Vitamin A dictates the production of sebum, the oily substance secreted by the sebaceous glands. In the aging scalp, sebum production can become erratic, either drying up completely, leading to hair breakage, or becoming waxy and inflammatory. Regulated vitamin A intake ensures that sebum production is balanced, creating a natural conditioner that coats the hair shaft, protecting it from environmental damage and retaining moisture. However, vitamin A is a double-edged sword. Toxicity from synthetic supplements can actually cause hair loss. This is why obtaining it from leafy greens is the safety valve. The body only converts as much beta-carotene into vitamin A as it needs, preventing the toxicity associated with pills. The leafy green category also encompasses the cruciferous powerhouses like kale and Swiss chard. These vegetables are rich in sulfur, the same mineral found in eggs, which aids in the synthesis of keratin, but they also contain unique compounds called isothiocyanates.
These phytochemicals trigger the body's antioxidant defense systems, specifically the NRF2 pathway. When activated, this pathway turns on the production of endogenous antioxidants like glutathione, the body's master antioxidant. As we age, our glutathione levels plummet, leaving our cells vulnerable to oxidative stress. By consuming sulfur-rich greens, we are essentially hacking the body's software, commanding it to produce its own protective shielding for the hair follicles. This protects the melanocytes, the cells that give hair its color, potentially delaying the onset of graying, which is essentially an accumulation of hydrogen peroxide, oxidative stress, in the hair shaft. Let us not overlook the magnesium content in these greens. Magnesium is involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions in the body, including protein synthesis. It is also a potent anti-stress mineral. High cortisol levels, stress, are a major accelerator of hair loss, pushing follicles into the telogen, resting phase. Magnesium helps regulate the nervous system, dampening the cortisol response.
Furthermore, calcification of the scalp is a theory gaining traction in hair loss research. This theory posits that in older adults, calcium deposits build up in the scalp's capillaries, restricting blood flow, similar to plaque in the arteries. Magnesium acts as a natural calcium channel blocker, ensuring calcium goes into the bones where it belongs, rather than calcifying the soft tissues of the scalp. Spinach and Swiss chard are among the highest natural sources of magnesium, acting as a vasodilator to keep the microcirculation of the scalp open and flowing. The cultural history of greens further validates their importance. In the Mediterranean blue zones, wild greens, horta, are a dietary staple, consumed in large quantities with olive oil and lemon. These populations exhibit remarkably low rates of pattern baldness and retain hair pigment well into old age. This suggests that the phytochemical diversity of wild, bitter greens offer benefits that modern hybridized sweet spinach might lack. It points to a need for variety, rotating between arugula, dandelion greens, beet greens, and kale to capture the full spectrum of botanical medicine. In the final analysis of dysentery, leafy greens represent the breath of the hair. They are the oxygenators. For the older adult whose physiological systems are slowing down, greens provide the catalytic spark. They ensure that the blood carries a full payload of iron and oxygen, that the DNA replication in the follicle is error-free, and that the scalp remains a fertile, uncalcified, and hydrated environment. To skip the greens is to cut the supply lines to the front, leaving the hair follicles to wither in a state of hypoxic starvation.
4. Nuts and seeds: almonds, walnuts, pumpkin seeds. We now descend into the microscopic vaults of nature, the seeds and nuts. If an egg is a capsule of animal protein, a seed is a dormant universe of plant potential, containing the genetic blueprint and the concentrated energy reserves required to birth a massive tree or plant. When we consume these embryonic structures, we are ingesting the most nutrient-dense matter in the botanical world. For the aging adult fighting hair loss, nuts and seeds are not merely snacks, they are tactical, hormonal regulators and mineral fortresses. This entry focuses on the big three of the follicular arsenal: walnuts, almonds, and the unsung hero of hair preservation, pumpkin seeds. The investigation into pumpkin seeds, pepitas, reveals one of the most compelling scientific breakthroughs in the natural treatment of androgenetic alopecia, pattern baldness. This condition, which affects both aging men and women, though presenting differently, is largely driven by the hormone dihydrotestosterone, DHT. An enzyme known as 5-alpha reductase is responsible for converting free testosterone into DHT. While DHT is essential for development during puberty, in the aging scalp it becomes a toxin. It binds to receptors in the hair follicle, causing it to shrink, miniaturize, until it can no longer produce a visible hair. Pharmaceutical interventions like finasteride work by inhibiting this enzyme. Remarkably, pumpkin seed oil has been shown to function as a natural 5-alpha reductase inhibitor. It is rich in beta-sitosterol and delta-7 sterol, phytochemicals that block the conversion of testosterone to DHT. A landmark double-blind placebo-controlled study demonstrated that men taking pumpkin seed oil saw a 40% increase in hair count over 24 weeks. For the older adult wary of the side effects of pharmaceutical hormone blockers, pumpkin seeds offer a dietary intervention that targets the root hormonal cause of thinning hair. Moving to the walnut, we encounter a nut that bears a striking resemblance to the human brain, and fittingly, it supports the head in multiple ways. Walnuts are unique among nuts for their high concentration of alpha-linolenic acid, ALA, the plant-based omega-3 fatty acid. While we previously discussed marine omega-3s, the plant-based variety plays a specific role in maintaining the elasticity of the hair shaft, but the walnut's true power lies in its selenium and biotin content. However,
the most critical aspect of the walnut for the aging individual is its role in combating systemic inflammation and improving endothelial function. The endothelium is the inner lining of the blood vessels. As we age, this lining degrades, reducing blood flow. Walnuts contain L-arginine, an amino acid that the body converts into nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a gas that relaxes blood vessels, causing them to widen, vasodilation. By consuming walnuts, older adults are essentially engaging in a natural form of scalp therapy, opening up the microcapillaries that feed the hair root, ensuring that the nutrients from the rest of the diet actually arrive at the destination. Almonds enter the arena as the heavyweights of vitamin E, alpha-tocopherol. We touched on vitamin E with avocados, but almonds are the supreme source. In the context of hair loss, vitamin E is the guardian of the cell membrane. The aging process is largely defined by lipid peroxidation, the degradation of fats and cell membranes by free radicals. Since the scalp is rich in lipids, sebum, and the hair follicle cells have lipid membranes, they are prime targets for this degradation. UV radiation from a lifetime of sun exposure accelerates this damage, leading to photoaging of the hair. Almonds provide the antioxidant shield that halts this process. A study involving volunteers taking tocotrienol supplements, part of the vitamin E family, showed significant hair regrowth because the antioxidant reduced the oxidative stress in the scalp that was forcing follicles into dormancy. For the older adult, a handful of almonds acts as an internal sunscreen and a preservative for the cellular integrity of the follicle. We must also address the trace mineral that makes nuts and seeds indispensable, zinc. Zinc deficiency is a known cause of hair shedding and is prevalent in the elderly due to poor absorption and low dietary intake. Zinc acts as a cofactor for multiple enzymes that regulate the hair growth cycle. It specifically helps to maintain the oil-secreting glands that are attached to hair follicles. Furthermore, zinc possesses potent antimicrobial properties. Many cases of hair loss in the elderly are exacerbated by scalp conditions like seborrheic dermatitis or fungal infections, which thrive in an immune-compromised environment. Zinc helps to sanitize the scalp environment, keeping the follicles free from microbial assault. Pumpkin seeds, hemp seeds,
and sesame seeds are nutritional gold mines for zinc. However, a deep investigative dive requires us to look at the anti-nutrient defense mechanisms of these foods. Nuts and seeds contain phytic acid, a substance that binds to minerals like zinc and iron, preventing their absorption in the gut. In a cruel twist of nature, the very food rich in zinc contains the compound that blocks zinc. This is particularly problematic for older adults with lower stomach acid. The solution lies in the ancient practice of activation. Soaking nuts and seeds in salted water for several hours and then dehydrating them breaks down the phytic acid and neutralizes enzyme inhibitors. This process mimics the germination phase of the seed, unlocking the nutrients and making them bioavailable. For an elderly digestive system, the difference between a raw almond and a sprouted or soaked almond is the difference between a stomachache and a medicinal dose of nutrients. Let us also consider the Brazil nut, the nuclear option for selenium. Selenium is critical for the conversion of the thyroid hormone T4 into its active form T3. Thyroid dysfunction is a massive contributor to hair thinning in women over 50. The Brazil nut is so potent that eating just 2 nuts provides the full daily recommended allowance. This brings up the concept of food as dosage. In this case, the food is so powerful that overdosing is possible, selenosis. This highlights the need for a precision approach to nutrition in the elderly, treating these foods with the respect usually reserved for pharmaceuticals. Flax seeds and chia seeds deserve mention for their lignin content. Lignins are phytoestrogens, plant compounds that can weakly mimic estrogen. In postmenopausal women, the drop in estrogen is a primary trigger for hair loss. As estrogen is hair protective, it keeps hair in the growth phase. The lignins in flax seeds can help modulate this hormonal drop, offering a soft landing for the hair follicles during the hormonal turbulence of menopause and postmenopause. They provide a gentle hormonal signal that encourages retention of the hair shaft. From a texture and usability standpoint, nuts and seeds offer versatility for the aging population. While whole nuts can be a chewing hazard for those with dental issues, nut butters and ground seed meals like flax meal offer the full nutritional payload in an easily digestible format. This accessibility is crucial.
A diet that is difficult to eat is a diet that will be abandoned. The integration of ground pumpkin seeds into soups or almond butter into oatmeal creates a seamless delivery system for these hair-preserving compounds. Culturally, nuts have always been associated with wisdom and longevity. In traditional Chinese medicine, walnuts are prescribed to tonify the kidneys and nourish the brain, both of which are energetically linked to hair health. Modern science is effectively catching up to this ancient wisdom, identifying the specific fatty acids and minerals that validate these traditional practices. In conclusion, the nuts and seeds category represents the strategic defense initiative of the hair preservation protocol. They provide the zinc to construct the hair, the vitamin E to protect it from solar and oxidative damage, the selenium to regulate the thyroid thermostat, and the phytosterols to block the hormonal signals of decay. They are small, calorically dense, and chemically complex. For the older adult, they serve as a daily recalibration of the body's mineral balance, ensuring that the hair follicle has the defensive weaponry it needs to survive the hostile environment of aging. They are the seeds of renewal, quite literally, consumed to prevent the barrenness of the scalp.
5. Greek yogurt or dairy products. As we reach the midpoint of our investigation into the nutritional protocols for reversing hair loss in the aging population, we encounter a food group that is as ancient as civilization itself, yet revolutionized by modern processing techniques: fermented dairy, specifically Greek yogurt. To understand why this white, creamy substance is a non-negotiable component of the hair preservation arsenal, we must first strip away the marketing veneer and examine the biochemical transformation that occurs when milk becomes yogurt. The process is not merely culinary, it is a predigestion. Bacteria, specifically Lactobacillus bulgaricus and Streptococcus thermophilus, consume the lactose, milk sugar, and convert it into lactic acid. In the specific case of Greek yogurt, a secondary, mechanical process occurs, the straining of the whey. This critical step removes the liquid fraction, leaving behind a concentrated matrix of casein protein. For the older adult whose metabolic machinery is slowing down and whose hair follicles are starving for structural components, this concentration is the key. Greek yogurt provides nearly double the protein of traditional yogurt, delivering a massive infusion of amino acids in a format that bypasses the digestive difficulties often associated with heavy meats. The primary structural benefit of Greek yogurt lies in its protein composition, dominated by casein. Unlike whey protein, which is absorbed rapidly, casein is a slow-release protein. It forms a gel in the stomach and releases amino acids into the bloodstream over several hours. This is particularly advantageous for hair growth, a process that occurs continuously 24 hours a day. The hair follicle does not sleep. It is in a perpetual state of mitosis, cell division, during the anagen phase. By consuming Greek yogurt, particularly before sleep or as a staple breakfast, the older adult provides a steady trickle of building blocks, specifically proline and lysine, that the follicle requires to synthesize keratin. Without this steady supply, the body may enter a catabolic state during fasting periods like sleep, breaking down muscle or tissue to preserve vital functions. Hair, being non-essential for survival, is the first to suffer from such rationing. The slow-release nature of casein acts as an insurance policy, ensuring the scalp never experiences a famine of raw materials. However,
the investigation into dairy reveals a nutrient that is often overshadowed by protein, vitamin B5 or pantothenic acid. The etymology of pantothenic comes from the Greek pantothen, meaning from everywhere, implying its ubiquity, yet deficiencies are surprisingly common in the elderly due to malabsorption. Vitamin B5 is legendary in the cosmetic industry. It is the Pantene in Pantene Pro V. But while topical application smooths the cuticle, internal consumption drives the machinery. Pantothenic acid is a precursor to coenzyme A, a molecule essential for the metabolism of fatty acids and the generation of energy within the cell mitochondria. The cells of the hair follicle are metabolically ravenous. They require immense energy to divide and push the hair shaft upward. Without sufficient B5, the follicle's energy production falters, leading to a premature exit from the growth phase and potentially contributing to the graying of hair. Greek yogurt is one of the most palatable and density-rich sources of this vitamin. By consuming it, we are essentially fueling the power plants within the hair root. We must also confront the complex and often controversial role of insulin-like growth factor 1, IGF-1. Dairy consumption is a potent stimulator of IGF-1 production in the human body. In the context of teenage acne or certain cancer risks, IGF-1 is viewed with suspicion. However, in the context of hair loss in the elderly, IGF-1 is a hero. Research has firmly established that IGF-1 is a crucial signaling molecule that maintains the hair follicle in the anagen or growth phase. As we age, our natural levels of growth hormones and IGF-1 plummet, a condition sometimes referred to as the somatopause. This decline is directly correlated with the thinning and miniaturization of hair. By reintroducing a dietary source that naturally boosts IGF-1, such as high-quality dairy, we are hacking the aging process, sending a chemical signal to the follicle that mimics the hormonal environment of a younger body. This is a delicate balance, of course, but for the geriatric subject battling alopecia, the anabolic, growth-promoting properties of dairy are a tactical advantage. The narrative of Greek yogurt is incomplete without a deep dive into the gut-skin axis. Modern dermatology is increasingly viewing the skin and scalp as a mirror of the gut microbiome. Systemic inflammation driven by a dysbiotic gut, an imbalance of bad bacteria,
is a primary driver of autoimmune hair loss like alopecia areata and a comprehensive accelerant of pattern baldness. The older gut is particularly prone to this imbalance due to a lifetime of antibiotic exposure, stress, and dietary shifts. Greek yogurt, provided it is labeled with live and active cultures, acts as a probiotic inoculant. The beneficial bacteria populate the digestive tract, reinforcing the intestinal barrier and preventing the leakage of inflammatory toxins into the bloodstream, a condition known as leaky gut. When systemic inflammation is quelled, the inflammatory assault on the hair follicle ceases. Furthermore, specific strains of lactobacillus found in yogurt have been shown in animal studies to increase dermal thickness and follicle number, likely through the modulation of the immune system. Thus, the yogurt is not just food, it is a biological terraforming agent for the gut, creating a hospitable internal environment that allows the external hair to thrive. We must also analyze the lipid content. For decades, the heart-healthy advice was to consume non-fat or skim dairy. From a hair health perspective, this was likely a catastrophic error. Vitamins A and D, both critical for hair cycling, are fat-soluble. They require a lipid vehicle for absorption. Nature packages these vitamins in the fat globules of the milk. When we remove the fat to create skim products, we not only remove the vitamins, but also the delivery mechanism for any fortified vitamins added back in.
Furthermore, the fatty acids in dairy, particularly conjugated linoleic acid, CLA, have anti-inflammatory properties. The aging scalp is often dry, itchy, and prone to dermatitis. The consumption of full-fat Greek yogurt provides the lipids necessary to maintain the sebum layer of the scalp, which acts as the natural conditioner and barrier against environmental pathogens. A dry scalp is a weak scalp. A lubricated scalp is resilient. Therefore, the recommendation for the older adult is strictly full-fat or low-fat, never non-fat. Calcium, the mineral synonymous with dairy, also plays a surprising role in hair mechanics. We typically associate calcium with bone density, but it is also a vital cell signaling molecule. In the hair follicle, calcium gradients regulate the differentiation of keratinocytes, the cells that become hair. Moreover,
calcium is required for the contraction of the erector pili muscles, the tiny muscles attached to each hair follicle that cause goosebumps. While these muscles might seem vestigial, their health is linked to the retention of the hair unit. Adequate calcium intake ensures that the mechanical and signaling pathways of the scalp remain functional. Given that osteoporosis and hair loss often track together in postmenopausal women, the dual benefit of calcium-rich yogurt cannot be overstated. Historical and cultural evidence supports the dairy-hair connection. We need only look to the rural populations of the Rhodope Mountains in Bulgaria, home to some of the highest concentrations of centenarians in the world. Their diet is heavily based on home-fermented yogurt. Observers have long noted that these populations often retain thick, pigmented hair well into their 80s and 90s. While genetics play a role, the constant infusion of probiotics, proteins, and B vitamins from their staple food creates a nutritional baseline that resists the degradation of aging. In contrast, populations that abandon traditional fermented foods for processed sterile diets often see a rapid acceleration of aging markers, including hair loss. Finally, the versatility of Greek yogurt addresses the practical challenges of geriatric nutrition. As chewing becomes difficult or appetite fades, the nutrient density of food must increase. A small bowl of Greek yogurt offers more protein than an egg and more calcium than a supplement, all in a texture that is easy to consume. It serves as a carrier for other foods on our list, berries, nuts, and seeds, acting as the culinary glue that holds the anti-hair loss diet together. It is a perfect medium for masking the taste of medicinal additives or simply enhancing the absorption of fat-soluble nutrients from other ingredients. In summary, Greek yogurt is a multimodal intervention. It provides the structural keratin bricks through casein, it fuels the energy mitochondria through vitamin B5, it signals growth through IGF-1, and it pacifies the immune system through probiotics. It is a food that addresses the hair loss problem from the gut, the blood, and the hormone receptors simultaneously. For the aging adult, it is not just breakfast, it is a daily restoration of the biological substrates of life.
6. Avocados. We now turn our attention to a botanical anomaly, a fruit that defies the sugary conventions of its kin to offer a rich, buttery payload of fat, the avocado. In the investigation of hair loss in older adults, the avocado, specifically the Hass variety, represents the lipid shield. If the previous entries provided the protein structure and the mineral supply lines, the avocado provides the essential moisture barrier and the antioxidant defense system required to protect that investment. The aging process is, in many ways, a process of desiccation. We dry out, our skin loses moisture, our joints lose lubrication, and our hair becomes brittle and snaps. The avocado is nature's most potent internal moisturizer, a biological countermeasure to the systemic dehydration of age. The primary active agent in the avocado is oleic acid, a monounsaturated fatty acid that constitutes the majority of its caloric weight. This is the same fatty acid found in olive oil, but in the avocado, it is packaged with a unique matrix of fiber and water. Oleic acid is crucial for hair health because it closely mimics the chemical composition of human sebum. Sebum is the natural oil produced by the sebaceous glands in the scalp to coat the hair shaft, waterproofing it and preventing the cuticle from lifting. When the cuticle lifts due to dryness, hair tangles, loses its shine, and breaks. In older adults, sebaceous gland activity often becomes irregular or diminishes entirely, leading to senile xerosis, dry skin, of the scalp. Consuming avocados provides the body with the specific lipid building blocks needed to synthesize high-quality sebum. It effectively moisturizes the scalp from the inside out, traveling through the bloodstream to the dermal layers where topical conditioners cannot reach. However, the avocado's value extends far beyond simple moisture. It is a fortress of vitamin E, alpha-tocopherol. We have touched on antioxidants before, but vitamin E is the specific sniper responsible for protecting lipid membranes. Every cell in the human body, including the hair follicle stem cells, is encased in a lipid membrane. Free radicals generated by UV exposure, pollution, and the body's own metabolism attack these membranes in a process called lipid peroxidation. This damage is a primary driver of aging. In the scalp, oxidative stress causes the hair follicle to age prematurely, turning gray and eventually shutting down production.
Avocados contain a massive dose of vitamin E that integrates itself into the cell membranes, intercepting free radicals before they can cause damage. A 2010 study involving subjects with hair loss demonstrated that tocotrienol supplementation, a form of vitamin E, resulted in a 34.5% increase in hair number over 8 months. The avocado provides this nutrient in its most bioavailable natural form, paired with the fat required for its absorption. This brings us to a critical concept in nutritional science: bioavailability synergy. Many of the nutrients essential for hair, specifically vitamins A, D, E, and K, are fat-soluble. This means that if an older adult eats a salad of spinach and peppers, entries number 3 and 9, with a fat-free dressing, they will absorb almost none of the critical vitamins. The digestive system requires dietary fat to transport these molecules across the intestinal wall. The avocado is the nutrient booster. Research has shown that adding avocado to a salad can increase the absorption of carotenoids like beta-carotene by up to 400%. Therefore, the avocado is not just a standalone superfood, it is a force multiplier for every other vegetable on the plate. For an older adult with compromised digestive efficiency, this synergy is the difference between expensive urine, passing nutrients, and effective tissue repair. Let us dig deeper into the trace mineral profile of this green fruit. Avocados are richer in potassium than bananas. Potassium is an electrolyte that regulates fluid balance within cells. Proper hydration of the hair follicle depends on this sodium-potassium balance. Furthermore, avocados are a significant source of biotin. While we associate biotin with eggs, the plant-based biotin in avocados contributes to the keratin infrastructure. But perhaps most interestingly, avocados contain phytosterols, specifically beta-sitosterol. As mentioned in the section on pumpkin seeds, beta-sitosterol has the potential to inhibit 5-alpha reductase, the enzyme that converts testosterone into DHT. While the concentration is lower than in pumpkin seeds, the regular consumption of avocados contributes to a systemic lowering of the DHT burden on the scalp, offering a protective effect against androgenetic alopecia. The investigation must also consider the evolutionary context. The avocado is an evolutionary ghost. It evolved to be eaten by megafauna, like giant ground sloths that went extinct thousands of years ago.
These massive animals would eat the fruit whole and excrete the giant seed. The fruit's flesh is incredibly energy-dense to attract such large animals. For the modern aging human, this energy density is a blessing. Older adults often struggle to consume enough calories to maintain metabolic function. A caloric deficit triggers telogen effluvium, shedding, as the body perceives starvation and shuts down hair production to save energy. The avocado offers a high-calorie, nutrient-dense fuel source that is easy to eat and digest. It prevents the energy deficits that often trigger shedding cycles in the elderly. We must also address the fat phobia era of the 1980s and 90s. During this period, dietary guidelines demonized fats, leading a generation, who are now today's older adults, to replace natural fats with processed carbohydrates. This shift arguably wreaked havoc on skin and hair health. The cell membranes of the body require fat to remain fluid and functional. A low-fat diet leads to rigid cell membranes and dry, brittle hair. The resurgence of the avocado in the 21st century represents a correction of this nutritional error. By reintroducing healthy monounsaturated fats, we are rehabilitating the cellular architecture of the scalp. From a culinary and cosmetic perspective, the avocado holds a dual duality. It is one of the few foods that is as effective when applied topically as it is when consumed. Mashed avocado masks have been used for centuries in Central and South American cultures to condition hair. The oils penetrate the cuticle, filling in the gaps caused by damage. While our focus here is dietary, this duality reinforces the chemical compatibility between the avocado and the human hair shaft. They are made of the same stuff, lipids and proteins. The processing of avocados also deserves mention. Unlike seed oils, soybean, canola, which require industrial refining, bleaching, and deodorizing, avocado oil is extracted simply eye-pressing the flesh. It is a fruit oil, similar to olive oil. This means it retains its antioxidant profile and does not introduce inflammatory oxidized byproducts into the body. Inflammation, as we have established, is the enemy of the hair follicle. By replacing inflammatory cooking oils with avocado oil or whole avocados, the older adult reduces the systemic fire of inflammation, allowing the scalp to heal and regenerate. Furthermore, the copper content in avocados is a vital, often overlooked detail. Copper is essential for the function of the enzyme lysyl oxidase, which is required for the cross-linking of collagen and elastin. This gives the skin and the tissue surrounding the hair follicle its elasticity. Without copper, the scalp loses its tone and ability to hold the follicle securely. Copper is also directly involved in the pigmentation of hair. A deficiency can lead to premature graying. While the graying process is largely genetic, maximizing copper intake ensures that the melanocytes, pigment cells, have the raw materials to function for as long as possible. In conclusion, the avocado is the green gold of the hair preservation diet. It addresses the fundamental issue of drying out that characterizes aging. It rebuilds the lipid barriers, enhances the absorption of all other nutrients, provides a hormonal buffer against DHT, and delivers a potent antioxidant shield. For the older adult, the avocado is more than a trendy toast topping. It is a physiological necessity, a way to keep the biological machinery lubricated, hydrated, and resilient against the ravages of time. It ensures that the scalp remains a fertile, moist environment capable of sustaining life, rather than a parched wasteland where our follicles wither and die. 7. Beans and lentils. In the 7th chapter of our forensic examination into the nutritional preservation of the aging scalp, we arrive at the most unassuming yet structurally critical category of the human diet, the legume. For centuries, beans and lentils were dismissed as poor man's meat, a caloric safety net for civilizations that could not afford the luxury of animal protein. However, modern nutritional anthropology and geriatric science have radically inverted this hierarchy. We now understand that the legume is not merely a substitute for meat, it is, in many specific biological contexts, superior to it, particularly for the aging organism battling the slow attrition of hair density. To understand the power of the bean, one must first understand the concept of biological economy. The hair follicle is an expensive organ to run. It demands a constant, uninterrupted supply of amino acids, minerals, and energy. As the body ages, its ability to extract these resources from heavy, inflammatory foods like red meat diminishes due to declining stomach acid and enzymatic efficiency. The legume offers a pre-digested form of high-density nutrition, a bioavailable matrix of plant protein that arrests the catabolic wasting of the scalp without taxing the aging system. The primary mechanism by which beans and lentils support hair retention in older adults is through their unique protein architecture. Hair is keratin and keratin is protein. However, the synthesis of keratin requires a specific profile of amino acids, notably cysteine, methionine, arginine, and lysine. Legumes are exceptionally rich in lysine, an essential amino acid that is often the limiting factor in plant-based diets. Lysine plays a dual role. It is a building block for the hair shaft itself, but more importantly, it is crucial for the absorption of iron and zinc. Without adequate lysine, the body struggles to utilize the minerals present in the diet. This is a critical point of failure in many elderly diets. An older adult might consume enough iron, but without the lysine key to unlock it, the hair follicle remains hypoxic and starved. Lentils specifically are a lysine powerhouse. By integrating lentils into the weekly protocol, we are essentially opening the chemical gates that allow mineral transport to occur, ensuring that the follicle receives the raw materials required for the anagen growth phase. We must then pivot to the mineral density of the legume family.
Specifically regarding iron and zinc, we have previously discussed the importance of these minerals, but the legume context is unique. The iron found in beans, non-heme iron, is often criticized for being less absorbable than meat-based heme iron. However, in the context of longevity and anti-aging, this is a feature, not a bug. High intakes of heme iron have been linked to increased oxidative stress and inflammatory markers in the elderly, conditions that accelerate hair aging. The non-heme iron in black beans and kidney beans provides the necessary oxygenation capacity for the blood without the pro-oxidant baggage. Furthermore, the zinc content in chickpeas, garbanzo beans, is staggering. Zinc is the foreman of the hair construction site. It regulates the enzymatic activity that builds the protein structure. A deficiency in zinc, which affects nearly 30% of the elderly population, leads to the breakdown of the protein structure of the hair, resulting in shedding and telogen effluvium. The chickpea offers a clean, anti-inflammatory delivery system for this metal, crucially aiding in tissue repair and the maintenance of the oil-secreting glands attached to the follicle. The investigation into legumes necessitates a confrontation with the controversial subject of soy. Soybeans are unique among legumes because they contain a high concentration of isoflavones, specifically genistein and diazinon. In the world of hair loss research, these compounds are polarizing. They are phytoestrogens, meaning they can weakly bind to estrogen receptors in the human body. For postmenopausal women whose natural estrogen levels have plummeted, the consumption of soy can offer a mild hormonal replacement effect. Since estrogen is protective of hair, it prolongs the growth phase. This can be a vital intervention for preserving density. However, the mechanism goes deeper. In the gut, certain bacteria convert the isoflavone diazinon into a metabolite called Equal. Equal has been shown in clinical studies to bind to DHT, dihydrotestosterone, the hormone responsible for pattern baldness, and neutralize it. This molecule essentially acts as a natural, albeit milder, version of pharmaceutical DHT blockers. The ability to produce Equal is dependent on gut flora, which brings us back to the fiber content of beans. Legumes are the premier source of prebiotic fiber, the fuel for the microbiome. By consuming beans, the older adult is gardening their own gut.
Cultivating the bacterial colonies necessary to convert food into hormonal medicine. Let us examine the glycemic impact. Hair loss is increasingly linked to insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome. When blood sugar spikes, the body releases insulin. High levels of circulating insulin can trigger the ovaries in women or the adrenals to produce more androgens, male hormones, which then convert to DHT and shrink hair follicles. This is the sugar shedding cycle. Beans and lentils have a profoundly low glycemic index due to their complex starch structure and fiber content. They digest slowly, providing a steady, flat release of glucose into the bloodstream. This prevents the insulin spike. For the older adult, whose insulin sensitivity is naturally waning, the legume is a metabolic stabilizer. It keeps the hormonal environment of the blood calm, preventing the androgenic flares that attack the hair root. In this sense, a bowl of lentil soup is a metabolic shield, protecting the follicle from the chaotic hormonal signaling induced by processed carbohydrates. The versatility of the bean also addresses the dentition gap in geriatric nutrition. As we age, dental health often declines, making the chewing of steak or chicken breast difficult or painful. This mechanical barrier often leads older adults to choose soft, nutrient-void foods like mashed potatoes or bread.
Beans and lentils, when properly cooked, are soft, palatable, and require minimal mastication, while delivering a protein punch equivalent to meat. This ensures that the protein threshold, essential for hair synthesis, is met daily, regardless of dental status. The hummus of the Middle East and the dal of India are perfect examples of geriatric-friendly superfoods that have supported dense hair in those populations for millennia. We must, however, address the anti-nutrient defense mechanisms, lectins and phytates. Critics of legumes point to phytic acid, which can bind to minerals and prevent absorption. While true in raw beans, the traditional preparation methods of soaking, sprouting, and pressure cooking degrade these compounds significantly. Moreover, recent research suggests that phytic acid may actually have antioxidant properties, binding to excess iron in the body that would otherwise cause free radical damage. This is the nuance of nutritional biochemistry. What is an anti-nutrient in isolation becomes a regulator in a complex system. For the older adult,
The recommendation is clear. Traditional preparation is key. Canned beans should be rinsed thoroughly, and dried beans should be soaked overnight. This activates the enzymes within the bean that break down the anti-nutrients, unlocking the full mineral payload for the hair follicle. The blue zone correlation provides the epidemiological evidence to support the biochemical theory. In Nicoya, Costa Rica, and Sardinia, Italy, regions where men and women frequently live to 100 with full heads of hair, beans are the cornerstone of the diet. In Nicoya, the Three Sisters diet of beans, corn, and squash provides a complete protein profile. These populations do not rely on supplements, they rely on the black bean. The correlation is too strong to ignore. The bean provides the longevity of the vessel, the body, and the integrity of the aesthetics, the hair. It is the fuel of the long-distance runner, and aging is the ultimate marathon. Furthermore, we must consider the folate, vitamin B9 concentration in lentils. Folate is essential for DNA synthesis and repair. The cells of the hair follicle are among the most rapidly dividing in the body. Every time a cell divides to create more hair, the DNA must be copied. Without sufficient folate, this replication process becomes error-prone or slows down. The result is hair that grows slower, thinner, and is more prone to graying due to DNA damage. A single cup of cooked lentils provides nearly 90% of the daily recommended intake of folate. For the older adult, whose absorption of synthetic folic acid may be compromised by the MTHFR genetic mutation, the natural bioavailable folate in lentils is the superior choice. It ensures that the genetic instructions for hair growth are read and executed correctly, day after day. In the final analysis of this entry, beans and lentils represent the democratization of hair health. They are accessible, affordable, and chemically potent. They provide the amino acid scaffold for keratin, the mineral cofactors for enzymes, the hormonal modulation for DHT control, and the metabolic stabilization for insulin management. To exclude them from the diet of an older adult is to ignore the most efficient, low-toxicity protein source available to nature. They are the seeds of the earth, consumed to maintain the crop of the scalp. 8. Berries, strawberries, blueberries. We now transition from the earthy solidity of legumes to the vibrant chromatic spectrum of the berry. In our investigation, berries, specifically strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, and raspberries, are not merely fruit. They are concentrated delivery systems for the most potent antioxidant compounds known to science. For the aging adult, the battle against hair loss is largely a battle against oxidative stress. Every biological process produces waste in the form of free radicals, unstable molecules that tear apart cellular structures, including the DNA of the hair follicle. As we age, our internal antioxidant defense systems like glutathione weaken, leaving the hair follicle exposed to this chemical crossfire. Berries are the external reinforcements. They are the colors of defense, with each pigment representing a specific bioactive compound capable of neutralizing these threats and preserving the follicular integrity. The headline nutrient in this category is vitamin C, ascorbic acid, and its importance to hair structure cannot be overstated. Most people associate vitamin C with immunity, but in the context of dermatology and trichology, the study of hair, it is the architect of collagen. The scalp is not a flat sheet. It is a complex three-dimensional matrix of connective tissue, primarily collagen and elastin, that holds the hair follicle in place like a tree in soil. As we age, collagen production drops precipitously, leading to a thin, papery scalp. When the soil thins, the tree loses its anchorage and falls out. This is a primary cause of diffuse thinning in the elderly. Vitamin C is the obligatory cofactor for the enzymes prolyl hydroxylase and lysyl hydroxylase. These enzymes are responsible for adding hydroxyl groups to the amino acids proline and lysine, a chemical step that is absolutely necessary for the collagen fibers to cross-link and form a stable structure. Without adequate vitamin C, this cross-linking fails. The collagen produced is weak and unstable, leading to a scalp that cannot support thick hair. Strawberries are a superior source of vitamin C, often containing more per gram than citrus fruits. By consuming them, the older adult is essentially providing the catalyst to rebuild the dermis, tightening the grip of the skin on the hair root. However, the investigation into berries goes deeper than vitamins. It enters the realm of phytochemicals, specifically anthocyanins. These are the pigments that give blueberries their deep indigo hue and blackberries their midnight purple. Anthocyanins are among the most powerful vascular tonics in nature.
Hair loss in the elderly is frequently a circulatory issue. The microcapillaries that feed the hair follicle are microscopic. They are easily damaged by high blood pressure, plaque, and inflammation. When these capillaries atrophy, the follicle is cut off from the blood supply and dies. Anthocyanins have been proven to strengthen the endothelial lining of these blood vessels, reducing permeability and fragility. They essentially reinforce the walls of the supply tunnels. Furthermore, they stimulate the production of nitric oxide, a vasodilator that opens up the capillaries, ensuring a surge of blood flow to the scalp. A diet rich in blueberries is a diet that prioritizes the microcirculation of the head, ensuring that the nutrient-rich blood actually reaches the target destination. We must also explore the role of ellagic acid, a polyphenol found in high concentrations in strawberries and raspberries. Ellagic acid is currently being studied for its antifungal and antibacterial properties. Many older adults suffer from scalp conditions such as seborrheic dermatitis or dandruff, driven by the overgrowth of the yeast Malassezia. This chronic inflammation at the scalp surface can permanently damage follicles. Ellagic acid acts as a natural antiseptic, helping to sanitize the scalp environment and reduce the fungal load. Moreover, ellagic acid has shown potential in protecting collagen from degradation by blocking matrix metalloproteinases, MMPs, enzymes that chew up collagen in response to UV damage. Thus, the berry not only helps build the scalp via vitamin C, but also prevents it from being torn down via ellagic acid. The narrative of the berry also touches upon the graying phenomenon. While our primary focus is loss, the loss of pigment often precedes the loss of the fiber. Gray hair is caused by the accumulation of hydrogen peroxide in the hair follicle, which bleaches the melanin pigment from the inside out. In a young body, the enzyme catalase breaks down this hydrogen peroxide. In an aging body, catalase levels drop. The antioxidants in berries, particularly the flavonoids, can mimic the activity of these protective enzymes, scavenging the hydrogen peroxide and potentially delaying the onset of graying or slowing its progression.
This preservation of the pigment cell, the melanocyte, is crucial because the death of the melanocyte is often linked to the death of the keratinocyte, the hair-producing cell. They are biologically coupled. Saving the color often helps save the hair. Let us look at the synergy of absorption again, this time regarding iron. As established in the section on beans, non-heme iron is difficult to absorb. However, the chemistry of the gut dictates that ascorbic acid, vitamin C, creates an acidic environment that solubilizes iron, preventing it from forming insoluble complexes. Adding sliced strawberries to a spinach salad or a bowl of oatmeal transforms the meal. It creates a biobridge that allows the iron from the greens and grains to pass through the intestinal wall. For the anemic elderly patient, the berry is the key that unlocks the iron store. Without the berry, the iron is excreted. With the berry, it becomes blood and eventually hair. The superfood marketing of the early 2000s did much to elevate the status of the blueberry, but it also obscured the nuance. Not all berries are created equal. Wild blueberries, Vaccinium angustifolium, contain significantly higher levels of anthocyanins than the larger cultivated highbush varieties found in most supermarkets. The stress of the wild environment forces the plant to produce more protective compounds. For the older adult seeking medicinal effects, the smaller, darker wild varieties, often found in the frozen section, are the superior choice. Similarly, the Indian gooseberry, amla, deserves a mention here. Though not a traditional Western berry, it is perhaps the most potent fruit in the world for hair health, revered in Ayurvedic medicine. It contains 20 times the vitamin C of an orange. While less accessible, its inclusion in the form of powders or extracts represents the cutting edge of global nutritional fusion for hair preservation. We must also consider the sugar content. Older adults, particularly those managing diabetes, are often wary of fruit. However, berries have a relatively low glycemic index compared to other fruits like bananas or mangoes. The fiber content in raspberries and blackberries is exceptionally high, which blunts the sugar response. This is critical because, as noted, insulin spikes are detrimental to hair. Berries provide the sweet reward without the metabolic punishment, making them the perfect dessert for the hair-conscious senior.
They satisfy the craving for sweetness while actively fighting the glycation process, a reaction where sugar binds to proteins like collagen and keratin and makes them stiff and brittle. By eating berries, one is displacing pro-inflammatory desserts like cake or cookies, effectively winning the war by removing the enemy. The future of berry science is moving toward nanotechnology. Researchers are currently exploring how to encapsulate the anthocyanins from berries into nanoparticles that can be delivered directly to the hair follicle via topical serums, bypassing the digestive system entirely. But until that technology is matured, the oral route remains the most effective. The ingestion of these compounds creates a systemic antioxidant defense that protects not just the scalp, but the retina, the brain, and the heart. It is a holistic intervention. Culturally, the foraging of berries has always been a summer ritual associated with vitality. In Native American traditions, berries were dried and mixed with fat, pemmican, to sustain tribes through harsh winters. This intuitive pairing of fat and antioxidants was chemically brilliant. Today, we advise the older adult to mimic this. Pair the berries with the Greek yogurt or the nuts. The fat aids the absorption of the fat-soluble vitamins, while the berries protect the fats from oxidizing. It is a perfect circle of nutrition. In conclusion, the berry is the spark plug of the hair growth engine. It does not provide the fuel, protein, or the oil, fat, but it provides the ignition, circulation, and the shielding antioxidants necessary for the engine to run without overheating. It builds the collagen road that the hair travels on. For the older adult, a daily cup of Nux berries is a pharmaceutical-grade dose of vascular and dermal support, ensuring that the scalp remains a living, breathing, and growing ecosystem rather than a dormant wasteland. It is the vibrant promise of renewal coated in color.
9. Sweet potatoes. We now tunnel beneath the earth to unearth a tuber that has sustained civilizations for millennia and currently stands as the cornerstone of the most successful longevity diet on the planet. The sweet potato, Ipomoea patatas, is often relegated to the status of a Thanksgiving side dish in the Western world, buried under marshmallows and brown sugar. However, in the rigorous investigation of hair loss prevention for the aging adult, this root vegetable emerges as a critical dermatological intervention. To understand why, we must first understand the structural decline of the aging scalp. As we age, the skin of the scalp thins. The dermis, the thick layer of living tissue below the surface that houses the hair follicle, loses its structural integrity and its moisture-retaining capacity. This condition, known clinically as senile xerosis, creates a hostile, arid environment where hair follicles effectively desiccate and wither. The sweet potato is the premier dietary weapon against this desiccation, primarily due to its staggering concentration of beta-carotene. Beta-carotene is a carotenoid, a pigment that gives the sweet potato its vibrant orange hue. It is an evolutionary signaling mechanism advertising the presence of intense nutrition. Once ingested, the human body converts beta-carotene into vitamin A, retinol. This conversion process is of paramount importance. Direct consumption of preformed vitamin A found in liver or synthetic supplements can be toxic. Hypervitaminosis A is a serious condition that can actually cause hair loss, liver damage, and bone thinning, risks that are amplified in the elderly. However, the conversion of beta-carotene is regulated by the body's own enzymatic intelligence. The body only converts what it needs, rendering the sweet potato a fail-safe, non-toxic delivery system for one of the most potent hormones in human biology. Vitamin A is essential for the production of sebum. Sebum is the oily, waxy substance produced by the body's sebaceous glands, which are microscopic exocrine glands attached to hair follicles. In the modern cosmetic industry, we are trained to view oil as the enemy, something to be stripped away by harsh shampoos. Biologically, however, sebum is the nectar of hair preservation. It creates a waterproof shield around the hair shaft, preventing the cuticle from lifting and breaking. It maintains the pH balance of the scalp, creating an acid mantle that repels bacteria and fungi.
In older adults, sebum production naturally plummets. This reduction leads to a dry, itchy scalp and brittle hair that snaps at the root. By flooding the system with beta-carotene, the sweet potato reactivates the sebaceous machinery, restoring the natural lipid barrier that conditions the hair from the inside out. But the investigation into the sweet potato reveals a connection to longevity that cannot be ignored: the Okinawan factor. Okinawa, Japan is one of the world's blue zones, regions where people live the longest, healthiest lives. The Okinawan diet is not rice-based, it is potato-based, specifically the beni imo, or purple sweet potato. These tubers provided nearly 67% of the caloric intake for the older Okinawan generation, a generation renowned for retaining dark, thick hair well into their 90s. The purple sweet potato contains not only beta-carotene, but also massive amounts of anthocyanins, the same anthocyanins found in blueberries. This combination creates a dual-action defense. The beta-carotene maintains the scalp's moisture and cell turnover, while the anthocyanins protect the blood vessels that feed the root. The Okinawan paradox suggests that a high-carbohydrate diet, provided the carbohydrates are complex and rich in anthocyanins like sweet potatoes, acts as a preservative for human tissue, slowing the rate of cellular senescence. We must also analyze the role of vitamin A in cell differentiation. The hair follicle is a site of rapid cell division. Stem cells in the follicle bulge must differentiate into keratinocytes to form the hair shaft. Vitamin A acts as a signaling molecule that tells these stem cells what to become. Without adequate vitamin A signaling, the differentiation process goes awry. The follicle creates a thin, weak hair, or worse, the pore becomes clogged with excess keratin, hyperkeratosis, choking the hair before it can emerge. This condition is often mistaken for simple dandruff in the elderly, but it is actually a nutritional deficiency of the skin. The sweet potato corrects this cellular confusion, ensuring that the turnover of skin cells on the scalp is rhythmic and orderly, preventing the buildup of dead skin that blocks growth. Furthermore, the sweet potato offers a solution to the metabolic hair loss crisis. High blood sugar and insulin resistance are enemies of the hair follicle. When insulin levels spike, it triggers a cascade of hormonal imbalances,
including the upregulation of androgens that shrink hair follicles. Unlike the white russet potato, which has a high glycemic index and spikes blood sugar, the sweet potato contains high levels of adiponectin-regulating fiber. It burns slowly, it stabilizes blood sugar. For the older adult whose insulin sensitivity is naturally declining, replacing white potatoes, rice, bread with sweet potatoes is a metabolic hack. It lowers the systemic inflammatory load, calming the hormonal storms that trigger shedding. Let us dig deeper into the preparation and bioavailability. Beta-carotene is fat-soluble. This is a critical nuance often missed in dietary advice. Eating a plain baked sweet potato yields only a fraction of its potential benefit. To unlock the vitamin A, the tuber must be consumed with a lipid. Historically, cultures have intuitively understood this, hence the sweet potato pie or the roasting of tubers in animal fats. For the modern older adult, we recommend consuming sweet potatoes with a high-quality fat source like avocado oil, olive oil, or even butter from grass-fed cows. This lipid pairing increases the absorption of beta-carotene by upwards of 300%. It transforms the meal from a simple carbohydrate source into a high-efficiency vitamin injection. The sweet potato also contains a unique protein called sporamin. Sporamin is a trypsin inhibitor, which in raw form is an anti-nutrient, but when cooked acts as a potent antioxidant. Studies have shown that sporamin can suppress the oxidative damage caused by free radicals in the skin. Given that the scalp is skin that is constantly exposed to UV radiation, especially in those with thinning hair, this internal sunscreen is vital. It prevents the photoaging of the scalp, a process where the sun destroys the stem cells in the hair follicle. We must also consider the copper content within the sweet potato. While not as high as in organ meats, it is significant. Copper is the mineral responsible for the cross-linking of collagen and elastin, giving the scalp its snap and elasticity. A scalp that loses its elasticity becomes loose and cannot hold the hair follicle securely. Copper is also essential for the production of melanin, the pigment that gives hair its color. While graying is largely genetic, copper deficiency accelerates it. The sweet potato provides a bioavailable source of copper that helps maintain the structural and pigmentary integrity of the hair unit. From a culinary perspective,
The sweet potato is a versatile vehicle for geriatric nutrition. Its natural sweetness makes it palatable to older adults who may have lost some of their sense of taste. It is soft and easy to chew, removing the mechanical barriers to eating. It can be mashed, roasted, or pureed into soups. This accessibility ensures compliance. A diet is only effective if it is eaten, and the sweet potato is one of the few superfoods that is genuinely essentially comfort food. In the final analysis of this entry, the sweet potato is the Earth's battery. It stores the energy of the sun in the form of beta-carotene and transfers that energy to the human scalp. It addresses the fundamental issue of drying out that characterizes aging. It turns the scalp from a desert back into a fertile garden, capable of sustaining growth. It creates the oil, regulates the cell turnover, stabilizes the blood sugar, and protects the DNA. For the older adult, it is the foundational root of the hair preservation protocol.
10. Oysters or zinc-rich seafood. We arrive at the final and perhaps most scientifically compelling entry in our investigation, the oyster. If the egg is the brick and the sweet potato is the mortar, the oyster is the architect. Specifically, it is the primary delivery system for zinc, the trace mineral that governs the entire architectural blueprint of hair synthesis. In the world of trichology, the science of hair, no mineral is more studied, more debated, or more critical than zinc. For the aging adult, the oyster represents the difference between a dormant follicle and an active one. It is not merely food, it is a biological filter that concentrates the ocean's minerals into a single potent gelatinous dose of life. To understand the indispensability of the oyster, we must examine the biology of zinc fingers. This is not a metaphor, it is a biological reality. Zinc finger proteins are small protein structural motifs that are coordinated by one or more zinc ions. They are responsible for reading DNA and RNA. They bind to the genetic material and oversee the transcription of genetic information. Since hair growth is essentially a process of rapid, continuous protein synthesis and cell division, the demand for these zinc-dependent transcription factors is enormous. When the body is deficient in zinc, these fingers cannot do their job. The genetic instructions for make more hair are sent, but they are not read or executed. The follicle enters a state of suspended animation, known as the telogen phase, and the hair sheds. This is why telogen effluvium, diffuse shedding, is the classic clinical sign of zinc deficiency. The aging context here is critical. Zinc absorption is notoriously inefficient in humans, and it degrades significantly with age. The elderly often suffer from hypochlorhydria, low stomach acid, which makes extracting minerals from food difficult. Furthermore, many medications common in geriatrics, diuretics, ACE inhibitors, and antacids, deplete zinc stores or block its absorption. This creates a perfect storm of deficiency that pills often cannot fix. Synthetic zinc supplements, zinc oxide or zinc gluconate, are often poorly absorbed and can cause nausea. The zinc found in oysters, however, is bound to amino acids and peptides. It is chelated by nature. This organic form bypasses the digestive bottlenecks of the aging gut, delivering the mineral directly to the bloodstream.
A single medium-sized oyster can provide nearly 100% of the daily recommended value of zinc. Eating half a dozen is akin to receiving a therapeutic infusion.
But the investigation into oysters reveals a more targeted mechanism, the inhibition of 5-alpha reductase. As discussed in previous entries, this enzyme converts testosterone into DHT, the hormone responsible for shrinking hair follicles in androgenetic alopecia, pattern baldness. Pharmaceutical drugs like finasteride work by blocking this enzyme. Research indicates that zinc is a natural 5-alpha reductase inhibitor. While it is not as potent as a synthetic drug, it acts as a gentle systemic modulator of this pathway. By maintaining high levels of zinc through oyster consumption, the older adult creates a biochemical environment that is hostile to the production of DHT. This is particularly relevant for men, but also for postmenopausal women who may experience a relative rise in androgen activity. The oyster therefore acts as a hormonal shield, protecting the follicle from the androgenetic assault that comes with age. We must also address the zinc-copper seesaw. In nutritional biology, zinc and copper are antagonists. They compete for absorption sites in the gut. Taking high-dose isolated zinc supplements can lead to a severe copper deficiency. Copper deficiency, as noted, leads to graying hair and fragile blood vessels. Nature, in its infinite wisdom, packages zinc and copper together in the oyster. While the ratio heavily favors zinc, the presence of copper ensures that the body does not become depleted of this secondary mineral. This balance is what makes whole food nutrition superior to supplementation. The oyster provides the entire symphonic orchestra of minerals, selenium, iron, copper, and zinc, playing in tune, rather than a single instrument playing too loud. The protein quality of the oyster also deserves mention. It is a complete protein containing all 9 essential amino acids. However, it is uniquely rich in taurine. Taurine is a sulfur-containing amino acid that is usually associated with energy drinks, but in the context of hair, it is a fibrosis inhibitor. Fibrosis is the scarring of the hair follicle. In permanent hair loss, the collagen around the follicle hardens, fibrosis, essentially choking the root to death so it can never grow back. Taurine has been shown to inhibit this hardening process.
Keeping the connective tissue around the follicle soft and pliable. By consuming oysters, the older adult is ingesting a natural antifibrotic agent that helps keep the soil of the scalp loose enough for the hair to push through. The cultural history of the oyster is steeped in myths of virility, most famously associated with Casanova. While usually viewed through the lens of libido, this myth is rooted in the biological reality of zinc's role in testosterone production. For the aging man, maintaining healthy testosterone levels is vital not just for sexual health, but for vitality and muscle mass. While high DHT is bad for hair, low testosterone is bad for everything else. The oyster helps optimize the hormonal panel, supporting the anabolic building state of the body rather than the catabolic breaking down state. We must, however, navigate the murky waters of toxicity and safety. Oysters are filter feeders. They clean the ocean. Consequently, they can accumulate heavy metals like cadmium and mercury, as well as microplastics. For the older adult whose detoxification pathways, liver and kidneys, may be slower, source matters. We recommend sourcing oysters from reputable, tested waters, specifically farmed oysters from clean regions like the Pacific Northwest or the Atlantic coast of Canada. Farmed oysters are actually one of the most sustainable protein sources on the planet and are often monitored more strictly for toxins than wild varieties. Furthermore, the risk of foodborne illness, Vibrio bacteria, is higher in raw oysters. For the elderly immune system, the risk of raw consumption is significant. Therefore, the recommendation is to consume oysters gently cooked, steamed, smoked, or roasted. This kills the pathogens without destroying the mineral content. Smoked oysters packed in olive oil are an accessible, shelf-stable, and safe option that can be easily added to crackers or salads. The texture of oysters can be a barrier. They are slimy, briny, and polarizing. For those who cannot stomach the texture, the solution lies in incorporation. Chopped smoked oysters can be hidden in pasta sauces or chowders. The flavor profile brings a rich umami depth to dishes, the fifth taste, which can stimulate the often flagging appetite of the elderly. This umami sensation is actually the taste of glutamate and nucleotides, signaling to the brain that the food is protein-rich and vital. Let us also consider the role of vitamin B12.
Oysters are astronomical in B12 content. B12 is crucial for the formation of red blood cells. Hair follicles require a massive oxygen supply. If an older adult is B12 deficient, pernicious anemia, the blood cannot carry enough oxygen to the scalp. The hair suffocates and falls out. A single serving of oysters provides several 100% of the daily B12 requirement. It is a blood builder of the highest order. In conclusion, the oyster is the capstone of the anti-hair loss diet. It addresses the most common and most damaging deficiency in the aging population, zinc. It restarts the DNA-reading machinery, blocks the hair-killing hormones, prevents the scarring of the follicle, and builds the blood that feeds the root. It is a polarizing food, yes, but its medicinal value is undeniable. It is the ocean's concentrated effort to support life. By integrating these 10 foods, from the humble egg to the exotic oyster, the older adult is not merely eating, they are engaging in a sophisticated, delicious, and scientifically grounded protocol to reverse the clock, reclaiming not just their hair, but their vitality. This is the end of the investigation, but it is the beginning of the follicular renaissance.